In this video we are going to talk about some useful commands. There's a big set of text processing commands really in the Unix bash. They are quite comprehensive, some of them that you wouldn't probably imagine that they would exist, but they are quite time saving if you know that they exist. So this is just an idea of giving you what these commands can be. And of course, if you're interested in one particular command, then you can go and check further the details of it. So let's start with these commands. One of the pretty useful ones is the head command. Head takes a file. I will be using the Gutenberg file again, and displays the first 10 lines by default from this file. You can change the number of lines using the n argument, for example, just to display the first 5 lines. The corresponding utility to view the end of the file is tail. So this shows the final 10 lines of the file, and again can be modified using the n flag to show a different number of lines. Another useful command is sort. This takes a formatted file, like the CSV file, for example, that we have been using, and it is used to sort this file. For example, we can use the languages.csv file. To sort, we should describe what kind of delimiter we are using here. Because it's a CSV file, this will be the comma delimiter, and this will by default display the sorted output on the standard output. So for example, I can redirect this to a new CSV and then check the sorted output. So by default, this file is going to be sorted in the ascending order and according to the first column, so the first value before the comma. Here these two values are starting with a space character, and well, if we check the ASCII file, then space is here. It has the value of 32, and the next ones are starting with a small a, which is over here 97. So because 32 is smaller, these two were sorted at the beginning of the file basically. We can also use the sort to sort with some other column. For example, we can sort with the third column. So this is starting from the third column until the third column. Use this third column as the key to sort, and this is now sorted again according to the value in the third column, but this is actually an alphabetic sort. So what do I mean? So for example, if I keep checking these values, so there is a 1 here, there's a 10 here, let's go down a bit, 100 and 106, and maybe down 109, and here's an 11. So 11 is sorted after 109. That's because the second character is in 109 is 0, which happens to be before 1 in ASCII table. So this is alphabetically smaller than this value. If I want to use a numeric sort, then I need to use the flag n to denote the numeric case, and for example, I can name this numeric sorted. So this will be okay. Yeah, here it's starting from 1, 2, 3, 4. So this seems like an actual numeric sort here, and the 100s are way below here. We have different options with this sort. There is the option of reversing the sort using the flag minus small r, starting from the bigger numbers. And then, for example, we can as well make a random sort. For example, if you are making a batch of some input data for a script, then it can be maybe useful. And then I can just check the head of this file to see that this is somehow put together randomly. For example, if you are using this du minus sh command, let's say I want to sort the files that I have according to their sizes, but the human readable sizes. So this gives me a sorted list of my outputs. And for example, in this languages file, the first line is the header actually, so this gives me information about the meanings of these columns. So I can as well, for example, try to remove this header file and then sort it. Can you think of a way of how we can do this? So, for example, one way that comes to my mind. So, for example, the one way that comes to my mind is using the tail command. We are going to take all the lines except the first line of languages.csv, and then we are going to pipe this output to sort, and we are going to remove the delimiter and sort, for example, with the first column and write it to so this is the result without the header. So one way that comes into my mind is removing this first line of the file using the tail command. Well, tail, when we use it with a positive number after this -n flag, it shows the last two lines of the file. But if we started with a plus and they say 2, then this shows us the end of the file starting from line 2. And we are going to pipe this into sort and specify the delimiter, and maybe output this to languages no header. Well, one thing that comes into my mind is to use the tail command to remove this first line and take all the lines except the first line. So when we follow this -n with a number, this means the final 20 lines in the file. But if I instead follow it with a plus and 20, that means all lines but the first 20 lines in the file. Well, actually starting from the line 20 from the file. So if I use, for example, here a +2, then this is going to start from the second line and then give me all the lines in the file. So I will skip the header, basically. So I will apply this on languages CSV, and I will pipe the output of this tail to the sort command, and I will tell sort that I will use the comma as the delimiter, and I will output this whole thing to languages no header .csv. And now if I less languages no header, then I have achieved this file. To search in the less command, you can press the /. Here it brings me the search option, and I can search, for example, description that was in the header. So for example, one thing that comes to my mind is to use the tail command to remove the first line of the file. Well, basically tail, when it takes the argument -n, and then if I say, for example, 20, then this is going to give me the last 20 lines in the file. If I precede this number with a plus, then it's going to give me the lines starting from line number 20 and then until the end of the file. So if I do this, then I will basically omit the first line and take the rest of the file starting from line 2. I will take the languages.csv for tail, and I will pipe the output of this command to the sort command, to which I will also tell the delimiter is the comma, and I will take the output of this file to languages no header.csv. And for example, if I less now languages no header, I see the sorted file. I can make certain that the first line doesn't exist here. Well, basically in ls, you can do a search by pressing the forward slash, which changes the symbol here to forward slash. That is the search sign. And for example, if I search for description now, then it is not in my file, so the header was successfully removed. Two other interesting commands that work on similarly formatted files like the CSV files are cut and paste. So cut removes columns from files, and for this the columns must be well defined. Again, I need to give the delimiter with and the -d flag, and after the d, then the syntax is a little bit different, but then I denote the delimiter this time using this single quotes. And then for example, if I want to take only the first column in my file, then I will say as the field select this first column, and for example I can want to work on this CSV file which gives me only this column. I can take more than one column by saying columns 1 and 3 here. And when printing, for example, if I don't want to use commas in the output, then I can give a output delimiter. For example, I want a space here. And for example, in the output, if I want a different output delimiter, then I can use this flag. For example, let's print it with the colon. Okay. Are you comfortable there? I can make space. So two other commands that are useful with this kind of formatted files like the CSV files are cut and paste. They use to well, modify the columns in the file, so the file must be organized in terms of columns like in the CSV files. So with cut I can remove sections from the files, sections of columns. For example, I can use these languages sorted CSV file for this, and I need to specify the delimiter to the cut command as the comma. And for example, if I want to take only the first column, then this is going to give me column 1. And I can ask for more than one columns. For example, if I want the first and third columns at the same time, then I can work the command like this. And for example, I can take this to a separate file. And what paste does is paste merges lines of files. So maybe to try this, I will select some other columns here. I will also take column 5. And when we give two files, paste basically combines these columns next to each other. So we can also, for example, take these to a new file, and we can also make it use a specific delimiter, for example, comma, as we have been using. So cat languages 1, 2, 3 and 5 gives me this nicely combined output. In the default case, the commands will be separated by a tab. The other command we are going to see is the unique command. This is used to report or omit some repeated lines from the file, so as to take only the unique lines. This requires a sorted input because the comparison between the two lines is made only between adjacent lines. So lines 1 and 2 are compared, lines 2 and 3 and compared, lines 3 and 4 compared, and etc. So for example, I can check the languages sorted, and if I wanted to report me if there is any duplicate lines, so for example, I can check languages sorted, and if I want to see if there is any duplicate lines, then I use the flag -d, and there are no duplicate lines in languages sorted. But if I, for example, just took say the third column in languages sorted, I think this should give me some duplicate lines. And let's check this one. And yeah, there are many duplicate lines. And I can view the unique lines using the flag -u. And I can count the occurrences using the flag -c. Another useful command is wc. This prints basically the new line, word and byte counts of a file. So working on languages again. This is the line count, the word count and the byte count in the file. I can take these ones one by one. So vc -l is going to give me the lines, and minus w is going to give me the word count, and minus c is going to give me the byte count. Well, this c is related to character, and in some cases, for some encodings of files, a character can be equal to a byte. So each character can be represented with one byte, but in general, to get the number of the characters in the file, we should use the -m flag. Another commonly used tool is the tr. tr, well, it replaces some character in its input with another character. So for example, let's use the previous files from the video and try to replace the character 3 with character 9, and this is going to give me its output in the standard output. So for example, can you think of another way of giving this command? tr operates in its standard input, which in this case I redirected from this file, so I redirected to its standard input. So another way which I could have written this command would be cat file1.txt, and this is going to read the contents of file 1 to its output, and I'm going to pipe this output to tr command, which will do the same thing. So one of the most common usages of tr that you can see is to convert between Unix style new line character and Windows style new line character. This is a bit of a mess for historical reasons. So it used to be that there were well, different types of new line characters. One is called the carriage return, short is CR, and denoted as the special character \n_r in programming languages. So what this does is move the cursor to the beginning of the line. So for example, if I'm let's open for this one. If I'm writing in a file, and I write something, and if I place a carriage return character here, then this is supposed to move my cursor to the beginning of the same line without advancing to the new line. This character is used as a new line character in early operating systems, like the early Macintosh operating systems. Another type of new line character is called the line feed, and short is LF. This is denoted by the \n special character. So what this does is move the cursor to the next line, but not necessarily returning to the beginning of the next line, just like moving downwards. And this is used as a new line character in Unix-based systems such as Linux and MacOS. The third type is the combination of both of these two. It is called end of line. Short form is EOL, and this is well, it's a combination of these two special characters, \r for carriage return and \n for line feed. And what this does is both to go to the beginning of the line and also advance to the new line, and this is used by basically Microsoft Windows operating system. So the problem is, if you are preparing a text file in Windows, then your file is going to use this end of line type of new line. So basically both \r and \n to denote the end of lines. And if you are working on a text file on a Unix system, then it's going to use only the line feed, basically the \n, to denote the end of the characters. And it can be a problem if you are moving your files between the two systems. So how can we see the line endings in a file? The text editors these days, they don't show what kind of special character is used to mark the end of the file. Basically, they handle it themselves. So for example, here, to go to the new line, I press an enter each time, and each time my text editor is placing a \n here because I'm working on a Mac now, but this \n is not immediately visible to us. But there are a couple of ways of checking what kind of line ending a file has. For example, with this Gutenberg file that we downloaded, we can check this using the file command, and this shows me that this file has carriage return line feed type line terminators, which means that this file has been prepared in Windows, and it happens to have both carriage return and also line feed at the end of each line. One way to make it visible is using the -v command with cat, which also shows the non-printable characters. So here you are going to see this weird M character at the end of each line, and these show the usage of carriage return, which is not native to the Unix system. So there are basically two ways to easily switch a file between the Windows and Unix type. First, let's make a copy of this file. So this is the Windows style. One is to use the utilities DOS to Unix and Unix to DOS. So DOS to Unix is used to convert a file from the Windows style line endings to Unix style line endings. It works on the file, so it would change your file. It has been converted to the Unix format, and if I now check the file again, then I have lost that comment about the line endings with carriage return and line feed. This basically means that this file is in the Unix format now. If I check it with cat -v, then I will also see that I don't see any M's here. The reverse can be done using the Unix to DOS and basically using the file name again. The other way to do this is actually use tr. So for example, I can give this DOS style file again to tr, and from the tr I can ask to replace this kind of Windows style endings with only \n for Linux style endings, and I can capture the result in this unix.txt, for example. And if I check this pg unix.txt, I see the similar command as above, but no carriage return line feed endings again with cat-1. I don't see any strange characters at the end. So this is something to keep in mind if you are carrying your files between Windows and Linux, and you happen to see these strange characters at the end, or the line endings doesn't work the way you expect in your scripts. Then this is something to keep in mind that you may need to convert.